I'm Harrison Kelly with BYU-Idaho Radio. I've got on the phone with me Cassie Latham. She's the regional director of the Idaho Food Bank, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Back to School campaign that they have going on. Cassie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm excited to talk about this cool campaign that Idaho Food Bank does for the area.
Yes, it's a fantastic program. I'm excited to be here and also talk to you about it.
Well, good. I'm glad. Yeah. As schools go back in session, what are some of the goals this year that this year's Back to School campaign has?
So really, the purpose of our backpack program, school pantry program, it's really focused on feeding kids who may need additional food when they're outside the classroom. Sometimes these kids, their most regular access to healthy and nutritious food is when they are at school, those breakfasts and lunches. And when they go home on the weekend, they don't always have regular access to food.
Right. And I'm curious to know, how do these kids sign up for this kind of a program?
Yeah, so actually we work very closely with the schools, the teachers, administrators, the counselors to run this program. And they're actually the ones who identify the students who are in need. And they let us know how many backpacks they need to service their kids. And that's how we work with them. So we really work with the schools to decide kind of who gets those backpacks, who's in need. And there's no application process. They don't have to sign up. It's just really based on, the working with the relationships that we have with the school to decide that.
Okay. And I know that there's some statistics that are not the greatest. Feeding America shows 18% of Idaho children face food insecurity, which is a lot higher than I'm sure some might originally think. With that statistic, how does that drive this campaign?
Yeah, it's actually one thing I will say about people in Idaho is they really step up when their communities are in need. So you were right. Feeding America does have it's about 17.4% in just eastern Idaho of those Idaho children are food insecure, and then about 18% statewide. But yeah, one thing that is really phenomenal about just communities and organizations, private donations, which is we get about 95% of our funding for this program from individuals like me and you, from organizations, from other nonprofit partners that we work with. And so it is great that there's such good support for it. It's just it's unfortunate that it's needed. So just in eastern Idaho alone, last year we did over 23,000 backpacks throughout the school year, and
Wow.
Statewide we do over 80,000, and we're actually hoping to do about 85 to 90,000 this year.
And that's 80,000 total backpacks. That's not necessarily 80,000 kids. That's 80,000 total.
Yes.
That's a lot of backpacks.
Correct. That's a lot of backpacks. Yep. I am happy to say, though, that last year, all of the kids who were on a waiting list for a backpack, we were able to help all of them. We got everyone off the waiting list last year.
So do you usually year to year have pretty great waiting lists?
Not too terribly bad. It kind of obviously depends on the school, the area that they're in, just the population of how many kids go to that school alone, sometimes factors in. But yeah, in the past, there has unfortunately been a waiting list. We just didn't have the funds to be able to help every single kid that needed it. But last year, like I said, we had great support with our donors. And so we were able to get every one of those kids off the waiting list. And that's really one of our biggest goals moving forward, is that there isn't ever any other kids on the waiting list.
You have the backpack program and you have the school pantries program. How do those two programs work side by side?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we actually started the backpack program first, and then school pantries came afterwards because we found out that some of the kids getting their backpacks are taking them home and trying to feed the rest of the family with their backpack. And the backpacks are just not designed for that. We have a registered dietitian that plans the menu, and it is for the nutritional value of a K through 5 student. So they end up with 2 breakfasts, 2 lunch, 2 dinners, and 2 snacks to get them through that Saturday, Sunday weekend. So when a kid's taking it home and trying to feed his siblings, or even sometimes his parents, the whole family is trying to eat that. That is just not enough food. So we started some school pantry programs so that the pantries can house some of those bigger staples, peanut butters, really hearty soups and stews, pasta dishes, things like that, that the families can utilize and then take home and also be able to eat and feed some of their other children over the weekend as well. So that was kind of how it got started. A lot of the schools, they either kind of have either or, so we can kind of spread the wealth, spread the food a little bit. But even some of the schools that participate in the backpack program, they have created their own school pantry. Sometimes the school pantry is run by a PTA or a PTO. Sometimes it's just stocked by the community. It just depends on kind of the bandwidth of the school and what they can take on. We have lots of agency partners that have community pantries, but sometimes these schools are in a very rural area where maybe the closest grocery store is 30 or 40 miles away. We know how Eastern Idaho is, right? We have a lot of rural areas. And so sometimes the school is kind of that community resource where everyone goes. That's where they have community events and activities and meetings. In some of those places, the school is really kind of the hub of the community. And so that makes the most sense to have a pantry in there. Where some of our other larger communities, there's a little bit better access to resources. And so they may only have backpacks at that school, if that makes sense.
Wow. So does the Idaho Food Bank, does it work through every state school in the state?
So we don't. We do have, just in Eastern Idaho, we do have about 78 school partners, and that's either a pantry or the backpack program. Some of them have both. Like I said, in some of those rural communities where it makes sense for them to have both. But one typically has one or the other. Statewide, though, we partner with over 185 schools to implement the back to school programs. So,
wow.
So yeah, not every school, because of course every school has very specific needs. None of them are the same, and so we really are very good about trying to work with the schools and just decide on what types of resources are available in that area, because we also don't want to duplicate efforts. We want to make sure everyone has access, but doing that, sometimes we have to spread it out, of course.
Right. And that makes sense. And that kind of leads me to this next question is, how are those partnerships facilitated? Do you guys have like outreach programs where you look at schools that are in need of these back to school campaigns, or does the school reach out to you and say, "Hey, we have this need within our school. Can you come and put this program here?" How does that work?
Yeah, a little bit of both, actually. So we do have a team of people. They're called agency relation coordinators, and they're kind of the boots on the ground. They go out, they work with our schools, they work with our agency partners. Sometimes we will have people reaching out to us saying, "Hey, I want to start a feeding site. I want to start a pantry of some sort." They can apply with us, and then we'll go through and we'll do a lot of homework to make sure that it makes sense, that we have the resources, we have the capacity, and that, again, we're not duplicating efforts in one community. And then on the flip side, they also will go out and meet with different community partners. And we use the Map the Mill Gap data. And so we have a health and nutrition team also that collects a lot of data for us. And so we can go into each specific county, see what the needs are, see how many people are accessing resources, see if there's gaps in what that community needs, and then we can kind of make recommendations from there.
That's really cool. So you're able to use that data and those statistics to find out like where the geographical demographics are, like where people have some of those needs.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And we really use a lot of the data. So like I said, map the meal gap from Feeding America, those numbers, and then even like different types of searches. So we have some data that kind of shows what some of the most often searched for things are coming from like that particular community. So it could be help with housing costs, utility costs, employment, things like that. And we actually kind of use some of those searches in our data as well to find out like what are people looking for, what kind of resources do they need in this particular area.
So we're talking about food insecurities, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know. Sometimes food insecurities can come with some emotional insecurities. And how does the food bank work with school counselors and faculty to deliver food to students that without creating some of those social insecurities?
No, that's a great question. And one of the things that we do when working with those schools is really try to help them set up a discrete system. So the bags of food that they get, they're pretty small. The really the thought that goes into designing these backpacks, it's not an actual backpack; it goes in the backpack, but these bags of food is it's really amazing. Like even down to the weight, because you can't put 20 pounds of food in a 5-year-old's backpack; they'll tip over. So even down to like how much the bag weighs, how easy the containers are to open. Can a child prepare it themselves? Does it need a bunch of extra ingredients? Like, no, it should just be like ready to go right when you open it, or maybe you have to add water and not a lot of other things to it. Um, and then it's all packed like really nicely. So even our volunteers, when they come in and make these bags for us, everything is put in there, almost like it's like Tetris, and it's fit in there just ever so nicely so that it's not bulky, and it can very discreetly be hidden in the student's backpack. So that again, you're totally right. Because if some kids will find out that another kid is getting free food, and yeah, it can cause problems. So we work with our schools to just make sure that how they're delivering these foods to the kids is very discreet.
That's awesome. And what you guys cover a lot of area, you cover a lot of counties. What logistical distribution challenges do you guys face throughout the area?
Oh gosh, yeah. So, Idaho as a whole, it has some pretty difficult to reach places, right? So just geographical barriers are sometimes difficult. Just in Eastern Idaho, we do the 16 Eastern counties. And so that means we're also going up to like Lemhi County, for instance. We're going up to North Fork and Elk Bend. We're delivering to Salmon. We're delivering to Driggs. We go all the way down to the Utah-Idaho border and Bear Lake and that area. And sometimes weather can be quite a challenge. And just even your normal transportation challenges, breaking down on the side of the road or blowing a tire, things like that. And we experience all of those things. So sometimes it really depends on a big team of people to make sure that we're getting food where it needs to be and when it needs to be there. And so we have a really great operations team that manages a lot of those logistics. All of our trucks have trackers on them. So we did a while back have a truck break down on the way to Salmon, Idaho, and we knew right away. And so we got another truck up there, and they were unloading food on the side of the road into another one so they could still get the delivery to Salmon. And it's kind of crazy, but we do everything we can to really make sure that we get food where it needs to be. I keep saying we should like just buy a bunch of drones and delivering it that way, but they haven't gone for that yet. So
and another stipulation I want to talk about. So how has the current economic impacts like rising grocery costs, inflation, how has that impacted donations in the program?
So, as I mentioned before, honestly, when there is a big need, the community steps up. So right now, there's definitely a larger need because of the rising inflation grocery prices, gas prices, housing costs. Idaho is actually the second most expensive state to live in the country when you compare housing costs to like annual median wage. And so that's a very tricky thing to try to combat, right? So there's definitely a need there, but like I said, community really steps up. So last October, obviously, I think everyone's aware, we had a government shutdown that lasted several months, and those SNAP benefits were suspended. And so the need rose very high, very quickly. And that was definitely a challenge. But thankfully, we have an amazing team, an amazing board of directors. They came in and approved $500,000 in emergency spending so that we could buy more food. We increased our pantry partners with 25 to 30% more food. And it was great. And honestly, we had community support to be able to back that up as well. We had a lot of organizations and people that said, you know what, we know there's a need. And so we're going to step up and we're going to donate what we can as well.
So talking about that community support and people stepping up, for those that are listening, what is the best way to get involved?
Sure. There are several ways to get involved. So volunteering your time is amazing. We have enough volunteers just in the Eastern Idaho warehouse that's located in Pocatello. We have enough volunteers in this warehouse each year that it replaces about 8 full-time employees. If you can't get down to Pocatello to volunteer, that's okay. We have lots of other agency partners and mobile pantries, which we can talk about mobile pantries if you'd like in a minute, but that are all completely volunteer run as well. And then another thing that we also like to ask people is just to help us with awareness, because we want to make sure that people know that help is available. Asking for help is an incredibly difficult thing to do, and sometimes you don't even know where to start if you need help. So just telling people that help is out there, help's available, because again, you just never know what somebody's situation might be, and you never know who might need a little extra help, who might need to, pay a power bill or buy their, medication, or their car just broke down and they have to prioritize that over buying groceries. You just never know. And then last but not least, obviously, monetary donations are really what help keep us functioning. Like I said, 95% of our funding comes from private and organizational community donations. We are not a state entity. We do not receive state and federal funds. We are a completely private 501c3. So that's a huge one. I also tell people that we have incredible buying power. So the best metaphor or example, I guess I know how to share is a gal came in, I was giving her a tour, and she said, okay, so I could go to the store and buy a can of corn for $1 and bring it in here and donate a can of corn. Or I can give you guys $1 and you can buy 3 or 4 cans of corn. And I was like, yes, exactly. Because we negotiate with a lot of suppliers and manufacturers. We buy so much food in bulk that we can generally get it for considerably less than the average person.
If the community wants to donate, you can go to idahofoodbank.org and go donate there. It's a great place for those that are listening to do that.
Yes, they can also sign up to volunteer too. So if somebody is interested in one of our volunteer sessions, that is where you would also do that. And just make sure you check what facility you are signing up to volunteer for, because we don't want you signing up in Lewiston if you're in Eastern Idaho.
That would be a far drive to go to Lewiston to volunteer.
That would be, yes, quite the trek.
It would. Well, Cassie, I appreciate you coming on the show talking about this really cool program that the Idaho Food Bank has.
Yeah, no, I thank you so much. Any opportunity we have to, like I said, get the word out and make sure that people know that we're here and help's available is fantastic.
That was an interview with Cassie Leatham, the regional director over the Idaho Food Bank. We talked about their back-to-school programs. You can donate or volunteer. For more information, check out the idahofoodbank.org. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Weekdays on BYU-Idaho Radio. Savannah McCauley had this hour's music, and I had the interview. Join us tomorrow for another episode at noon and 6 p.m. I'm Harrison Kelly. Be informed, be inspired. BYU-Idaho Radio.